It's Thursday, February 2nd, 2017. I'm your host, Sarah Mantle. We have a great show in store for you today. The state legislature will soon, state legislators will soon get a bump in pay. We're going to talk more about that with State Senator Julian Cyr. And we'll find out what's on the town council agenda with President Eric Steinhelber on this episode of Barnstable Today. Now let's take a look at today's top headlines. The town of Barnstable could soon have a new assistant town manager. Town council will vote on the appointment of Andrew Clyburn at its meeting this week. Clyburn currently serves as the commanding officer at the Coast Guard base on Cape Cod. We'll find out more about that and what's on the agenda for tonight's meeting later in the program when we chat with Town Council President Eric Steinhelber. Well, a local elementary school is getting high praise from the governor's office. Governor Charlie Baker awarded Hyannis West Elementary School a commendation for its academic accomplishments and accelerated student learning. Principal Kathy Amato accepted the award at the State House yesterday. Hyannis West is one of only 51 out of 1,800 Massachusetts schools to receive the award this year. Are you looking for a job? The town of Barnstable is a great place to work and has more than a dozen available opportunities. You can apply for open positions online. If it's the first time you are applying using our online job application, you will need to create an account and select a username and password. That application, though, can be saved and used to apply for more than one position. To see what positions are currently available, you can visit the town's website and click through to the employment section. Well, there are a few important dates to remember for local mariners. Marina waiting list renewals are due February 15th. Mooring permit waiting list applications are due February 15th, and mooring permit renewals are due February 28th. Marine and Environmental Affairs staff recommend you renew early to avoid missing any deadlines. Up next, we're going to chat with State Senator Julian Cyr. The state legislature recently passed a bill bumping up legislators' pay. To talk more about that, we have with us State Senator Julian Cyr. Julian, thank you for joining us. I want to ask you a couple questions about the pay increase that was just approved in the House and the Senate. Tell me a little bit about how this exactly will work. I know they're calling it about an $18 million package of pay raises. What can you tell me about the bill?
Hi, Sarah. My pleasure for joining you folks today. So this legislation basically does the work where, for a long, long time in Massachusetts, we've really kicked the can down the road in making sure that we keep up adequate compensation for our constitutional officers, our governor, judges, legislators, and others. And really, Massachusetts was running the risk of becoming a state where only the independently wealthy could run for office. And I know you know this well, having had a family that served in this work, that the compensation is often far less than folks imagine. And so anyway, this works in that it's bringing up to date. Basically stipends for legislative leaders, committee chairs, adjusting those that haven't been updated since 1982 and 1994, which is 35 and 23 years, respectively.
Well, and let me stop you there just really quick,
yep.
Because we say that they haven't been updated, but there have been raises. It is in the state constitution that the salary of legislators goes up and down with inflation, or I think it's the mean salary in the state. So there was actually a vote, I think, earlier in the year, right before this, to go ahead and give a 4% bump on that, just because of how the market is happening. So why this extra bonus? I think it's going to take House Speaker Robert DeLeo and Senate President Stanley Rosenberg. Their salaries are going to bump up $45,000 a year to $142,000. Is this a hard pill? Was it a hard vote for you to take? Because, and the reason I ask you that is because, like, let's say the governor in December made some pretty hard 9C cuts. The tourism money is being cut. Some funds for opiate epidemic is being cut. So how is it legislators can really balance this?
So the governor actually made over $1.2 million in cuts that affect the Cape and Islands. These are cuts actually that many of us in the legislature did not believe are necessary. The cost of doing this actually, there's no new appropriations in this bill. What the Senate and the House have done actually is put away money so that we can do this within our existing resources. And I think for me that this wasn't that tough of a vote. I mean, I've received feedback from a lot of constituents. I think folks who just sort of hear about it on the face of it have some questions. Have received feedback, especially from people working in the Registry of Deeds, working in our courthouses on the Cape and Islands. Really thankful to have this. People who, I can't even believe how little they're getting paid, $30,000 a year, $40,000 a year to work in our systems, going to help them live on the Cape. But for me, this is really about making sure that we're enabling diversity in our representation and inviting more people to serve in public office. It's not lost on me that the last three governors of Massachusetts are people of incredible means who have assets and incomes over $1 million. And that really the jobs of working and leading in our legislature, the compensation for that really has not been commensurate with the amount of time it requires to be in Boston. The compensation is about a third less. If you look at folks in our executive branch, there's several thousand people in state government who will continue to make far more than any members of the legislature, even those in leadership, after this passes. So for me, I view this about making sure that we have diversity in our legislature, we have diversity in our constitutional officers, and not becoming a place where only the wealthy can run for offices. And even for myself personally, I left my position with the Department of Public Health for almost over a year, not working, running for this office. There's probably no way that I could do that if I was a little bit older or had children or something, some larger responsibilities like that. So I think this really enables actually, on the face of it, it looks, hey, what's going on? But actually, I think this is going to enable more diverse representation, especially when we're just seeing so much socioeconomic stratification in our country. And increasingly, it's those only who have the money and the time to participate in public life are able to do so. And I just don't think that's right.
Yeah, definitely hear that point. One thing I do want to ask you about, though, there was no public hearing on this bill before it was voted on. Is that a problem for you? Does that bother you a little bit? I think many residents would have liked to see this discussed openly and not rushed through.
So there was a public hearing on this the week prior to this initial vote. I think this is a case where, with so much going on, I think the media's memory and the public's memory is short. All of the things in the proposal come out of recommendations that were released in 2014 from a commission made up of experts and academia looking at compensation across the state and other states. So this isn't a new conversation. I think the timing of it, of course...
Right, but there really wasn't a hearing on the bill. Am I correct?
The hearing on this specific bill was a week before it was taken up, so certainly a little speedy. I think that I'm a big fan of transparency and process. I think I'm 3 weeks in here, so I'm learning how to come up to speed with all that. But I think that this is something that's a policy that actually has had a lot of thought and put into it, and is based on recommendations. I think this is something that, at the end of the day, is going to make the Commonwealth a more inclusive, representative place. You had also asked about base pay of legislators, and I didn't answer that earlier. You're correct; it is tied in the Constitution. It's currently at $62,000 a year. At that amount of money, I certainly can't afford to own property in the district I represent. This is the name of Dylan Fernandez.
And
really
like you mentioned,
I think from a socioeconomic perspective and a generational perspective, if we don't do a good job of making sure that that people are able to continue to be legislators, they're likely going to be, and I would likely be, and Dylan would be in a situation where we likely would be leaving the legislature sooner than maybe the voters would want, in part just because of sheer finances. And I think it's real important that we're very keen about who can participate in our government.
Absolutely, and like you said, I totally
I know you relate.
Yes. Well, thank you for joining us today. We really appreciate it, and look forward to chatting with you again next month.
You bet, and I got to come and visit you guys in the studio one time.
We would really like that. Please do. Anytime you're in Barnstable, you just stop by. We'll put you on camera.
Great.
All right. Thanks, Julian.
Thanks, Sarah. Bye-bye.
All right. Bye-bye. My guest today, of course, State Senator Julian Cyr. Now let's find out what's on the agenda for tonight's Town Council meeting with Town Council President Eric Steinhelber. Town Council meets tonight to chat about what's on the agenda. We have with us President Eric Steinhelber. Thank you so much for joining us today. The meeting will start off with a couple presentations. First, they're going to be talking about shellfish aquaculture and a program overview there. Who will be giving this presentation?
Sure. Well, thanks for having me, Sarah. Tonight we're gonna have that presentation, and Mark Ells will be our town manager. Mark Ells will be talking about that, and what that program gets into kind of ties into the 208 plan, which all the towns on the Cape are looking at ways to address wastewater issues beyond just big pipe solution, which was kind of the big idea several years back, but there was a lot of pushback on that, as you probably remember. And so we're looking at different ways to address it. One of those ways is through, shellfish, aquaculture, because things like oysters, they can actually filter tens of gallons of water per day, which kind of pulls the nitrates out of the water. And the flip side of that is that economic development, for the Cape. Obviously, oysters are very popular, and other shellfish. So it's kind of a win-win type program. We won't solve the wastewater issue by itself, but it's going to be a part of the solution. So we want to get moving on that as soon as possible.
Yeah, nice to have, I think, a combination of efforts, and I think that's what bodies like the Cape Cod Commission have really suggested, is sort of looking at alternative ways and not just going with that sewering, because, of course, we know that's very costly and may not have the effect that we want. So then there's another discussion on the agenda, too, about non-residential zoning district review. Tell me a little bit about this.
Yep, the town manager will be going over that as well, potentially. Planning department will take part in that in addition to him. But basically what that's going to do, it's kind of a workshop in a way. It's to go over all the various zoning overlays and definitions and what everything means. When you kind of look at a map, it can get very convoluted with zoning. You can have a parcel that touches, 2, 3, 4 types of zoning, what type of zoning supersedes the other. So it's a way for the council just to kind of get fully up to speed on that. And actually, in addition to that, tonight I'll be announcing the formation of a committee I'm putting together at the council level, which is going to look into finding recommendations to change zoning, possibly regulations in town to really streamline economic development to help us produce more new growth dollars, but in addition, be able to address housing needs in the town where we need to be able to have a higher density for something to make sense. Because again, tying back into wastewater, if you're building, putting together a housing place with several apartments, you need to be able to have the density there to make the costs come together, so it's not cost prohibitive. So it's going to be a big focus of the council this year, is looking into zoning for those two items. So we're looking forward to digging in on that and making some changes in a positive way.
Yeah, very exciting to hear about that committee. I'm assuming that's going to be a town council subcommittee filled with councilors. Is that correct?
Correct. We may have a couple of liaisons as well from some other committees, but it will be formed with 5 councilors.
Yeah, exciting stuff. A good way to work towards progressing and future efforts. I want to talk to you a little bit to old business. Nothing too important. I think we have some acceptances to board, committee, and commission posts. That'll be voted on. And then moving to new business, there is a grant. This is kind of exciting. I assume this is for the police department. $14,460 for some portable radios. Those, as we know, that equipment can be so expensive. So doing a great job there, getting a grant from the Massachusetts Emergency Management Agency.
Yep, we have a lot of the police. Some of the radios are really becoming obsolete. Some of them are 20, 25 years old. And nowadays, it's very important to be able to communicate with all of the police departments on Cape Cod, as well as the Sheriff's Department, the Mass State Police. So will allow them to replace, I believe, five of those radios. So it's, with the police department's constantly working to upgrade, the equipment to stay up, so we have the best, technology available for our police force. So we're looking forward to bringing that forward.
And then, of course, we have an appropriation and transfer order on the agenda in new business for the amount of $95,000. This is to really fund costs associated with notice of responsibility issued by the Massachusetts Department of Environmental Protection involving some work at the airport. What can you tell me about this item?
Sure. Well, I think you probably remember the issue we had with the Mary Dunn wells, where the PFAS was found in the wells. The EPA had, kind of raised or lowered, however you want to look at it, the amount of parts per trillion that you could find in water. So we've addressed the Mary Dunn wells and the Mar wells at the airport with either filters or mixing in clean water. So there's no issue at all with the drinking water. But going forward, the state has issued what's called a potential responsible party to the airport for the Mar wells. They did the same to Barnstable County. As you know, there's an issue with the Barnstable County Fire Academy, which is a direct contributor to the issue with the Mary Dunn wells. But the airport's a little bit more of a cloudy situation. A lot of this has to do with wells being down gradient of areas where in the past they've used fire foam for training and that type of stuff. And obviously at the airport they have drills, safety drills, where in the past they may have used this type of foam. So basically this is money that they need to put together an immediate response action, is what it's called. So they do have Torsley Witten on contract with the airport to kind of deal with environmental issues. So that this will allow them to kind of look into the issue and take care of anything that's going on there at the airport.
Yeah, so important. And then, of course, the airport has another appropriation and transfer order of $138,000. And this is just for a project to paint slurry seal and paint the airport terminal aircraft parking apron. What can you tell me about this?
Sure. The parking apron by the terminal had some work done in 2010 and 2014. And at that time, they had done the kind of sealed inspections. But this will put a full, seal across the whole apron. And basically, it preserves the pavement there. We have, obviously a lot of traffic coming through. You have JetBlue airliners coming through there now. So it prolongs the life of the pavement and the parking area near the terminal for the aircraft.
Yeah, always good to spend money to make things last longer instead of replacing
the other good thing about this, actually, it's we spend the money out of the airport enterprise fund, but then it's eligible for 95% reimbursement. So most of the money will be reimbursed once the work is done through the FAA and also MassDOT.
Wonderful. That's great news. It's not often that you hear that, right? Then I want to talk about I think Councilor Fred Chirigotis put in an order forward for $500,000 from community preservation funds, and this is really looking at that plot of land again on Long Beach Road. Is this a new step, or is this a continuation of an old effort?
Yeah, Councilor Chirigotis, he's not the sponsor of this. It actually is coming through the town manager's office. I think on the original agenda there was a typo there, but we fixed it and reposted it. This kind of reaches back to 2013, actually before I was on the council. They had set aside money from the Community Preservation Fund to look into acquiring a piece of property, which is called Cross Street over in Long Beach. For a long time, it was basically assumed it was a town way to water. There's two ways to get to the beach on Long Beach Road there. But then there was a challenge in court, and not to get into all the legal details, because a lot of it is an executive session, but basically the state court found that it was actually private property, and it's gone on for a few years, kind of back and forth in the courts, and it's just got to a point where we're a housekeeping item in a way to kind of pull these funds back into the CPC fund so they can be reallocated to other needs and projects in town.
Okay, great. Thank you for clarifying that for me. And then
Sure.
a final item I want to discuss before I let you go. This is exciting. We may soon have a new assistant town manager. Council will be voting on the appointment of Michael Andrew Clyburn. What can you tell me about this?
Yeah, we're excited about that. As you know, town manager Ellis began in July, so he's been kind of a one-man show since then. He's gone through a very thorough process. We had and he's kept the town council leadership apprised of the process. He's had great candidates, great finalists. But I think he's made a great decision. I was able to meet him on Tuesday night at the Citizens Academy, and we look forward to him coming on board. And I think he's going to be a really valuable member to our team.
Yeah, I did a little research online. I think, is he currently the commanding officer at the Coast Guard base on Cape Cod?
Correct.
So he's got a wealth of experience managing the Coast Guard base here on Cape Cod.
Yeah, he is very much a professional manager, solid individual. And, there's a lot of challenges and opportunities that we have as a town, and having him as part of the town manager's office is really going to be helpful, not only to Manager Els, but to all the departments and all of us that want to move some stuff forward in town.
Absolutely. I'm sure that Mark is going to be really thrilled to finally have an assistant. Thank you so much for joining us today and breaking down the town council agenda. We really appreciate it, and look forward to chatting with you in a couple weeks.
Great. Thank you, Sarah. Talk to you then.
Thanks so much. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Our guest today, of course, Town Council President Eric Steinhilber. Let's take a look at what's happening around town in today's community calendar. Ever wonder how to capture the attention of kids at story time? Well, the Sturgis Library and the Massachusetts Department of Early Education and Care are hosting a class to help improve storytelling skills. The class is appropriate for teachers, librarians, parents, caregivers, and really anyone wanting to improve their skill set. It also counts for 3 PDP credits, or those are Professional Development Plan credits. The free class will be held Tuesday, February 7th at 4:30. Space is limited, so call the Sturgis Library to sign up. Barnstable Fine Arts students and the JFK Museum in Hyannis are teaming up for a new exhibit, the exhibit opening of BHS and JFK, Artistically Honoring Our Past, will be held Tuesday, February 7th. At the opening, you will be able to view student work honoring the life and legacy of John F. Kennedy. The reception will be hosted at Barnstable High School in the main lobby at 5 p.m. and will showcase art created and curated by students after they were given a behind-the-scenes tour of the JFK Museum in Hyannis. Well, Town Council meets tonight at 7 in the Town Hall hearing room. That meeting will air live right here on Channel 18. Thanks so much for tuning in today. We're going to be back tomorrow with another great show for you. We're going to chat with Town Manager Mark Els. We're going to learn more about 2 great one-act plays produced by Sturgis Charter Public School students. And we're going to talk to Natural Resource Officer Sean Cordes about seals and other nature wildlife. For Barnstable Today, I'm Sarah Mannel.